Mahesh, anything you'd like to add, sir, as city administrator?
Good evening, Mayor Bauer and Board of Aldermen. Not much to add tonight. We have a study session in which Brandon Buckman will be demonstrating the equipment or the training. It's on CPR and auto pulse demonstration. I just wanted to inform board also that most of the management team members also went through a CPR training that Brendan and his staff has provided. In addition to the training tonight, I also would like to acknowledge that Raytown EMS provide EMT Basic Academy classes. And the information is on our city's website, and some pertinent information is Raytown Emergency Medical Services Training Academy provides participants with the knowledge to become professional pre-hospital care providers. The participants undergo a comprehensive program built around high standard and quality instructors. Clinical experiences meet and exceed the minimum requirements, giving students well-rounded and a complete hands-on experience, translating into professional and career success. The participants are provided with knowledge in the following areas: legal and ethical issues for pre-hospital providers, basic and advanced airway techniques including CPR, assessment and emergency treatment of medical and trauma patients, external defibrillation and AED operations, basic medical pharmacology, clinical experience in EMF field setting, and much more. The minimum requirements for applying for the programs are: applicants must be minimum of 18 years old at the time of testing, have a high school diploma or GED, felony-free criminal record, and submit to a background check prior to the course. And the reason I'm mentioning it, because during a cleanup day event, I came across a student who was taking a similar class at Penn Valley. And later on, he found out that our classes here at Raytown EMS is cheaper than the amount of money he paid at Penn Valley. Economical option is not one thing that we are proud of it, but what we are proud of it is last class of EMT student, when they took the exam, which is statewide or nationally recognized, 15 students, those who took the exam, all of them passed. And why it is important that we have a 100% pass rate during the last class, because the state of Missouri, the average pass rate is little below 65%. So we know we are doing something right, and we are providing education that making our students successful. So with that, I think I promised this student that I will do a little time on the air regarding EMT classes so that anyone who is interested can take part. The current classes, we have 22 students, which is the maximum. So we are at full capacity. The program is going gung-ho. We are actually helping a lot of folks, not only in Raytown, but the surrounding communities as well. With that, I will conclude my report.
Thanks, sir. Committee reports. Mr. Mock, anything to add on Council on Aging?
No, there is not.
Mr. Ertz?
Police pension will be meeting September, help me out, Wednesday the 3rd, I believe.
September 5th is the next Police Pension Board meeting. That's what you're alluding to.
There you go, 8 o'clock.
Ms. Melson?
I did want to mention that Alderman Ertz, Lightfoot, Asia, and I participated in the Let's Move It event that was August 16th, and there were quite a few individuals there, a lot of elected officials and other celebrities supporting the Move It initiative and that Jan Wynn is putting on, and there will be more information on an event on September 22nd.
Good. Mr. Pardue?
There's nothing to report for the Human Relations Commission at this time.
Mr. Kramer?
Park Board met last evening, had some basic housekeeping issues, but nothing else to report.
Mr. Lightfoot, legislative.
There's no new legislation information this week.
All right, we'll move on to the study session then at this time. And welcome Brandon Buckman, our interim emergency medical services director. I'm really concerned he's going to ask for a volunteer, and Mock, you're the, yeah, Mock is, Steve Mock could lead that class, Brandon. You brought your own dummy, okay, all right.
Tonight's study session, I'm going to talk about the Zoll AutoPulse device. This is a device that we were recently awarded grant funding for by Firehouse Subs Restaurant. One of my staff members, we formed a grant writing committee, and one of my staff members found this particular public safety foundation through Firehouse Subs, and they give grant money throughout the United States to departments who they feel are in need or would meet their requirements for public safety funding. We applied for that grant, or my staff member, Travis Richard, applied for that particular grant. And our hopes were, at that time, to possibly get one device that we could maybe share. These are expensive devices. These, along with the device, the carrying case, they come with batteries, all the accessories that are needed for this particular device, which I'll demonstrate here in just a moment. With that, though, what we had found, my staff had been looking at this particular device for several years. With the cost of the device, though, it was out of our realm of possibilities as far as budget goes. And it's something that always looked nice, and we always thought we'd really like to have, but we thought, well, we've got to have oxygen, we've got to have the big things that we have to have, and this can wait until we were in better budget shape to do that down the road. When we received notice for the grant, we were notified that not only would we be receiving one device, we were actually going to receive two devices. They gave us two devices, the cases, all the batteries, chargers, all the equipment that we would need, well over $30,000 of equipment that cost us absolutely nothing. So it was a great surprise for us to receive that. This particular device, what it does basically is takes the place of someone doing manual CPR. Where we in the past are doing CPR by hand, this device now places a band completely around the patient's chest. What we do when we do manual CPR is press down on the sternum, which compresses the heart. The band actually presses the entire chest wall, the entire chest cavity, at approximately 20% depth, and actually gives far better blood flow to the heart and to the other vital organs than the manual chest compressions provide. It actually provides about 33% more effective CPR to a patient. The advantage to this particular device versus the old way of doing the hands-on CPR is that when we are with a patient in a house, upstairs in an apartment, somewhere like that, where we have to get that patient out of the residence, down the stairs, out to the ambulance, oftentimes we have to stop doing CPR when we move the patient. It's just not physically possible for us to carry the patient on a board and have someone continue to do CPR when we're walking down hallways or trying to climb down steps in the dark, etc. So with this particular device, when it's turned on, it continuously does compressions. It will never stop until we push the button to make it stop. So it's set up to deliver continuous compressions to that patient, which is, based on all the studies, is the absolute most effective for the patient. Thus the reason for the 33% higher survival rate than just manual CPR. This is not something alone that we use, and only this. This combines with all the other advanced cardiac life support tools that we have available, advanced airways, IV therapy, drug therapy, defibrillation, shocking the heart, things of that nature. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to show you the device, kind of what it does, and also to let you know that tomorrow is our formal dedication ceremony from Firehouse Subs. They are doing a formal dedication ceremony tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. at the Sterling location, the Blue Ridge Crossing restaurant. They're going to do a formal dedication of all of our equipment at that time. So we certainly invite you if you can make it. We'd love to see you up there as well. But I will take just a minute or two here and show you what the device does, and then I'll let you get back to the regular meeting at hand. What we do here is when we encounter a patient in cardiac arrest, we start CPR. We start manual CPR. We pull this device in immediately as soon as we know that we're working a cardiac arrest, a pulseless and non-breathing patient. The patient is quickly moved on to the board, to the device itself. They're covered. This is called a life band. This completely covers the patient's chest. Cinch down. And immediately we'll start chest compressions. This device will continue to go like this until I stop it. The advantage to this is that after a while of manual CPR, I'm going to become tired. There's no way I can continue to keep up this rate, this type of CPR. I'll stop it so you can actually hear me. But the advantage is that it doesn't tire out like we do. If anyone's ever done CPR, I can tell you from doing it hundreds and hundreds of times over the years, it's absolutely a very tiring procedure. To do it very long, you absolutely will get tired and will have less effective CPR for the patient. The advantage of this machine is it doesn't tire out. It's run by a lithium battery. The battery lasts for about 45 minutes. We have a backup battery that's fully charged with it. Should we be out longer than that time, the battery simply pulls out of the back, put the new battery in, good to go again. It's a great device. We actually put it into service a few weeks ago. On a Friday afternoon, we finished in-service for all of our staff. Friday, 11 hours later, we used the device for the first time on a patient and actually got a pulse back with that particular patient. So, not known for a fact that this machine is what saved the patient's life, but absolutely this combined with all the other advanced cardiac life support skills of the staff, greatly led to the survival of that patient. So I just wanted to take some time tonight and show you what this machine is. We're very excited to have these on. We now have these on both of our regular ambulances, 24 hours a day, and they're ready to go. They're checked out daily with all of our other equipment, and all of our staff is now trained on those devices. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
That's awesome, Brandon. I think we have a lot of thanks need to go to Firehouse Subs for that donation and contribution. Any questions or comments for Brandon? Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time, we're going to move on to the legislative session. We've got the regular agenda before us, and I'll ask the clerk to perform the reading on item number 1, please.
A resolution authorizing and approving the purchase of a 2012 Chevrolet G4500 Type 3 ambulance from Osage Ambulance off the Montgomery County Cooperative Purchasing Contract in an amount not to exceed $130,355 and amending the fiscal year 2011-2012 budget.
Mr. Buckman, again, as the interim emergency medical services director, anything to add on this subject, sir?
No, we are replacing our oldest ambulance, which is a 2003 Ford ambulance that has over 140,000 miles on it. What we will do is rotate our ambulances in the current fleet down and make this our newest ambulance. It's part of our regular fleet maintenance program that we're on with the city.
Questions or comments for Mr. Buckman? Mr. Kramer's got the motion to approve, seconded by Mr. Pardue. Discussion before we vote on item number 1. Call the vote, please.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Pardue,
Yes.
Alderman Mock,
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot,
Yes.
Alderman Melson,
Yes.
Alderman Hamilton,
Yes.
Alderman Azier,
Yes.
Alderman White, Alderman Ertz,
Yes.
Item number 2, please.
a resolution authorizing and approving the expenditure of funds with Northcraft Enterprises, Inc. in excess of $15,000, but within budgeted amounts for fiscal year 2011-2012.
Any questions of Mr. Knoll or Mr. O'Neill? Anything to add, sir, as our Public Works Director?
Just to add that this is a slow process of going through and replacing carpet as is worn out, tried to project a positive image for Raytown. We anticipate a project coming up in the finance department that's rather large. Currently, we've completed 4 small office areas and spent about $8,900. We will come very close to $15,000, if not exceeding that, with the next project. Therefore, coming to the board, seeking approval to spend more than $15,000 with one vendor. We have not received the quotes on this project yet, so we're not assured that Northcraft Enterprises will win this bid, but in the past they've won all the others, so it would lead me to believe that history is a good indicator of the future, that they will win the next one as well. Here to answer any other questions you will have.
Ms. Melson?
So bids haven't been taken on this yet?
We've received quotes. We're seeking quotes on the finance area at this point, and based on our previous quotes, it'll be about $9,000.
Okay. So as far as a bid sheet where they're doing the bidding out of the area and all that, we don't have that?
We have them from the previous ones that we've done, but not for this finance, because I wanted to make sure we had that approval before we moved forward on that
Okay.
one.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
Ms. White's got the motion to approve. I heard Mr. Hamilton here with the second. Yes. Discussion before we vote on item number 2. Call the vote, please.
Alderman White, Alderman Hamilton,
Yes.
Alderman Melson,
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot,
Yes.
Alderman Azier,
Yes.
Alderman Mock,
Yes.
Alderman Pardue,
Yes.
Alderman Kramer,
Yes.
Alderman Ertz,
Yes.
Okay, item number 3 is a continuation of a public hearing to consider a conditional use permit for property located at 9615 East 63rd Street. I'll ask the clerk to perform the second reading, please.
an ordinance granting a conditional use permit subject to certain conditions to operate a motorcycle sales and repair business on property located at 9615 East 63rd Street.
We'll reopen the public hearing at this time. Anyone on the board like to share any ex parte communication they may have had on this subject? Not appearing.
Mayor Bauer,
Mr. Ertz.
I did receive a email from a constituent about some concerns about it. I believe it was shared with city staff, and answers have been responded to. So.
Okay. And you're comfortable continuing deliberation?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Pardue?
Yes, I also received the email in a forward from a constituent, but it won't affect my decision.
Okay, thank you. All right, very good. Mr. Benson, anything to add on this subject, sir?
Yes, just briefly, the Planning Commission, as I mentioned at the last meeting, held a public hearing on this application, and by a vote of 7 in favor and 0 against has recommended approval subject to the conditions stipulated in the ordinance. Also, since the last meeting, in talking to Chief Lynch, there is a city ordinance that prohibits parking of motor vehicles on the sidewalk or on sidewalks within the public right-of-way. As such, the ordinance has been amended that is before you tonight in condition number 5. It's been referenced to section 23-130 of the City of Raytown Code of Ordinances, has been referenced, that the granting of this conditional use permit and that specific condition grants an exception to that ordinance and will allow the parking of motorcycles on a portion of the sidewalk in front of this property as delineated in that condition. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here tonight, and speaking to her prior to the beginning of the meeting, she did not have any new information to present, but said she'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any for her.
Any questions, Mr. Benson, before we ask the
Yes, I do.
applicant, Mr. Mock?
Yeah, Mr. Benson, I was wondering about the canvas sign that's on the building. Is
For
it
the,
going to stay there, or is it coming down, or?
my understanding, it will be coming down. The applicant did speak to me prior to that being installed. They had to, in order to, in the part of the process of obtaining their state of Missouri dealer's license, they have to have a sign up, and she had asked permission to put that up, which we granted her, and they had to basically take a picture of it and send that in with their application to the state of Missouri. She's indicated to me that will be coming down. They may replace it with a permanent sign in accordance with our sign regulations.
Okay, so when will it be coming down?
I'll have to defer to the applicant on that one.
Okay. All right, another thing is, I have an issue about the motorcycles on the sidewalk also. How far back were they supposed to be back?
They are, bear with me a moment, let me get to that condition.
Was it 6 feet?
I believe that's right.
63rd Street?
Yes, that's correct. It'll leave about 6 feet from the back of the curb to the edge of where the motorcycles would be parked. There's about 14 feet from the front of the building to the curb line.
That sidewalk's 14 foot?
Approximately,
Yeah, it looked like they were about 4 foot off the back of the curb today when I drove by.
Well, when I was out there, I walked it off or was out of the car and looked, and there's joints in the sidewalk that are approximately every 6 feet or so. Not each one is uniform in its width.
It concerns get them back, make sure they're back at least.
Right.
Hate to see somebody come up on the curb and take a couple of those out.
Right, and that's our, we don't want them out next to the roadway. We'd rather have them up next to the building.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Even on the side of the building tonight, they were not on the sidewalks or anything. They were parked out in front of that garage door.
That's actually private property. The right-of-way line is on the Evanston side or to the side of the building. Okay. There's a part of their parking lot. It's actually parking lot area on that side, so they're not actually in the right-of-way there.
Okay. Just as long as they've got that understanding.
Yes, I visited with the applicant about that side as well.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Other questions, Mr. Benson? Mr. Hamilton?
I'm just wondering, are we setting a precedent here in making an exception to this ordinance? And if we are, then, that probably invites down the road other applications for exceptions.
You are setting a precedence in the sense that you're granting an exception, but you're going through a legal process to grant the exception in that regard. The reason, in talking to the applicant, and the reason it's part of this application to clarify this is, as part of the streetscape project further to the east on 63rd Street, our intent is, or desire or intent is to allow businesses to have sidewalk displays or outdoor seating that would be in the right-of-way. But by going through this process, we want not just this business, but any future businesses that want to do that, we want to make sure they don't just arbitrarily start doing it, but they need to come to the city and be granted that permission to do that. And so in that sense, you are setting a precedence in that sense that sets that standard to be followed in the future.
Okay, thank you. Joe, did you have something?
I would add to that, though, that each one will come before you on a case-by-case basis. It certainly opens the opportunity for subsequent applicants to make the case for their case based on the fact we have granted it in the right-of-way before, but does not require you to approve it because we've approved it on one.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Lightfoot?
So on the lines of that, as of now, it is against ordinance for somebody, any business along there, to even put a a portable sign out? I mean, you could get a sign permit and do it about 15 days a year, but you can't bring a portable sign out in front of your business even daily.
That would be a different section of the city code, but correct, signs by private businesses are not to be located within the street right-of-way. That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, other questions at this time? Mr. Kramer?
And not that I have a problem, because I live real close by, and I've seen their displays of motorcycles, and it's nice and neat. My concern would be, in the future, how do we police if somebody's just got junk out in front of there and they say, well, I'm having a sidewalk sale? Or are we going to set some standards or some criteria to ensure that it's a nice, neat display? Not that I have a problem with this one, because it's been perfectly okay.
Yeah, as far as sidewalk sales, I believe, and I'd have to double check and get back to you, but I believe we have a section in the city code that allows for sidewalk sales for a specific period of time and a specific number of times each year, but I'd have to double check that to be sure.
Well, and this, by granting this, we would allow them any day of the year that the sun was shining, snow not out probably. They're going to have motorcycles out, and I don't mind that. It's, like I said, it's been nice and neat, but I just don't want to get into a situation where we have the streetscape downtown and we have somebody that junks it up.
And that's why each business would have to come back before the board for specific approval to have anything within the street right-of-way, whether it be on the sidewalk or elsewhere.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, if there's no other questions for Mr. Benson, oh, Mr. Azier has something to?
No.
All right, no other questions for Mr. Benson. I'm going to switch up the order a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and jump to public comment, and then I'll ask the applicant to come forward after public comment. So is there anyone in the audience that would like to talk about this subject or address an issue with it to the Board of Aldermen at this time? Okay, that went faster than I thought it might. Would the applicant like to say anything else at this time? Welcome.
Thank you. Again, my name is Karen Bosarge. I reside at 315 Northeast Warrenton Court in Lee Summit, Missouri, and owner of Karen Cycle Sales at 9615 East 63rd Street here in Raytown. I just wanted to let you guys know that we do make sure that all of the motorcycles are up against the building and leaving ample room for anyone to walk past. We keep it very nice and neat. And until today, we were not aware that there was a law or city ordinance or anything against us putting those on the sidewalk. Otherwise, we wouldn't have put them there. And I just wanted to let you guys know that we will do everything according to the book and make sure that everything is nice and neat and safe for everyone.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the applicant? Ms. Melson?
Can you address the sign issue about?
The sign issue, as
putting
what
up
Mr. Benson said, yes, I had a sign put up briefly just so I could go across the street and take some pictures. And it is so high up that you can't get to it with a normal ladder, otherwise it'd be down already. By the end of the week, it will be down.
When does the new sign go up?
I haven't got a date on that yet, but I haven't even done my permit or anything yet to have it erected, so I'll be doing that shortly.
Mr. Benson, this applicant's familiar with the signage or sign guidelines we've got?
Yes, we have had discussions.
Okay. Other questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any additional comments, Mr. Benson?
I have nothing further.
All right, we're going to close the public hearing then and go to board discussion on this matter. Discussion and/or motion. Mr. Kramer has the motion to approve. I heard a second by Ms. White. Discussion before we vote on item number 3. Call the vote, please.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman White? Alderman Lightfoot?
Yes.
Alderman Mock?
Yes.
Alderman Ertz?
Yes.
Alderman Melson?
Yes.
Alderman Hamilton?
Yes.
Alderman Azier?
Yes.
Alderman Purdue?
Yes.
Ask the clerk to perform the first reading on item number 4, please.
An ordinance amending Chapter 13, offenses related to the presence and conduct of minors on streets and public places, Article 10, Sections 13-120, 13-121, 13-122, 13-123, 13-124, and 13-125 regarding curfew for minors, parents' responsibilities, and penalties.
And we welcome at this time Ross Niger, our city prosecutor. Ross, welcome. Anything you'd like to add, sir?
Your Honor, or Mayor, I have proposed this ordinance to address some issues with the school. As you know, we had the school board here recently just received their award. We're trying to make sure that the students stay in school and that the parents take some responsibility to make sure they get there. Further, this adds to the current ordinance we already have, which is the nighttime curfew. So we're just adding the daytime curfew in order to make sure that we've got both the day and night covered, and we don't have the groups covering on the corners and without either permission or having some purpose. So this ordinance has addressed a lot of different issues. One is to get them in school, and 2, to keep them from loitering around and causing problems in the neighborhoods.
Question, Mr. Nigro. Ms. Melson.
I did have a couple of questions about the ordinance. With the daytime curfew hours, how is that going to be enforced?
The daytime curfew hours?
Uh-huh.
What do you mean by the police or?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that we'll have, you know, the curfew hours between 8:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m., but if one individual's out there, I mean, and then it went through here also about that if they are out, they have to call or register in advance with the chief of police. I mean, those are kind of some, yeah.
Race?
Hopefully I'm on the right one, but that's on page 3, section, or number 5, where if you're attending functions, may register in advance with the chief of police or designate.
Right, those are exceptions.
Right.
Those would be if there's an authorized program that involves school-age children at some function,
Right.
either through the school district, through an organization. The one, as far as the chief of police, they can also get a special permit from the chief of police if you're doing one outside of the school. And the only reason why that was included in there is some exceptions where, like maybe the Boy Scout troop wants to do an activity during the day and wants to get permission. That would be how that would come through for that purpose.
I mean, would an example of that be a field trip that's school-sponsored going to Coleman?
Well, a field trip by the school should automatically be excluded.
Okay.
You would not need permission from the chief of police for that or a designee.
Okay. And then what about homeschool children and activities that they're involved in?
Okay, that would also, if they're homeschooled, that would be part of their schooling if they're involved in those activities.
Okay.
And that is included part of the school. I mean, homeschooling is their school, so any activities they're taking part in there at that situation, or if they're even by any adult. As long as they're accompanied by an adult that has control of them, they have permission to be out, they're okay. It's only if they're out without adult supervision at some location without some purpose.
Right. And I understand that. I mean, I understand where this is going. It just kind of seemed like there were some different instances there where it might be kind of hard to enforce. I mean, I guess if you see kids at 63rd and Blue Ridge Boulevard on the corner and it's 12:30 in the afternoon, the police could stop them, ask them what they're doing, kind of thing.
That's correct.
Okay.
And if investigation leads that they have a purpose there and they're rightfully there, then yeah, they go on and stay there.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mock.
Okay, the penalties will go along with the nighttime penalties also. Could you explain what the penalties are?
Okay, the penalty section, as far as the children go, since they're minors, they have to be referred to juvenile court. This is really, the purpose of this ordinance, along with the nighttime ordinance, is to get the parents or the responsible parties to make sure the children are behaving, that they're going to school when they're supposed to be. They're not just letting them stay home and skip school every day because they don't want to wake them up out of bed. And having been in juvenile court, I've heard those excuses where they say, well, my kid doesn't go to school because he's 12 and he says he doesn't want to go and I don't want to force him. Well, that's when this ordinance comes, when either the juvenile court's so busy they don't want to enforce it, or it doesn't rise to the level of juvenile court yet, so then we bring in the parents here to address it. As far as the penalties go, any of the actual penalties available, which is the maximum $500 fine and up to 90 days in jail. Now, are they going to get that on a first offense, depending on what the offense is? Most likely not. But the whole range of punishment as in any ordinance would be available under this one for a violation.
Okay, isn't there a ticket to the parent?
That's what we're talking about, ticketing the parent.
Okay.
Or the businesses that allow the children to congregate illegally. But the juveniles would be referred to juvenile court. Only the parents or the parties responsible to receive the ticket.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Azier.
First of all, I think this is a really good ordinance. Having been retired from the classroom, I do drive throughout Raytown during the day, and I've seen children on the street that were obviously of either high school or even younger on the streets walking on the sidewalk, sometimes in pairs or groups, and wondered myself, why weren't they in school? So I think it would be really a great measure because it's important that to the school district that they maintain their attendance properly, because that's part of the state guidelines. One question I would ask is that I know that there are some times when schools have early outs, and I'm assuming that the school district will communicate with the police department if, for example, they got out at 11:30 or 12. I don't know if that happens now or if this would change because of the curfew, but does that make sense to you?
Well, yeah, if the school is let out early, then the children would be exempt from the ordinance because school's not in session at that time, whenever time they let out early. But that probably should be communicated to the police department if that's going to be an issue where they let out at 11:30 and maybe a whole bunch of them go to Sonic to get something to eat. Police officer drives by, there's 10, school-age children standing there at Sonic at 12 o'clock. I'm not sure why. But I think either a phone call, you could answer that question pretty quickly.
Right, and I understand that obviously they're not in violation, but we would have police officers maybe stopping students, which would eat up staff time.
True.
When they weren't violating a curfew.
Right, and I think the school districts is here, and I think I'll make a point with them to make sure that the police officers have the schedule and they know when these days are half days or the early release days.
It doesn't happen very often. I noticed they put 1:30 schools out, actually high schools out at 2:20, but so 1:30 probably covers it. But I know I haven't looked at the school year this year, but we had the early out on Wednesday, and I was thinking that might have been before 1:30, but I'm not sure if they do that again this year. Schedules change, but does that make sense?
It does, and I will make sure that the school district knows to notify the police officers when they do have an early release.
Chief Lynch, I've got a question for you, sir, on this, if you could come up for a second. I guess what I'd like to make sure of is that you've weighed in on this, that you and your officers are comfortable with this, because one of the things that we want to make sure of is that we're not also putting into place an unenforceable action here. So talk to me or talk to us about the enforceability of this and what your opinion is on it, sir.
Sure.
Please.
I do believe it's enforceable. I know that it's not been, the truancy thing's not been tested in the higher courts, but I think it's another tool in the toolbox for us, just like when we changed the curfew at night, the hour change. It's a tool in the toolbox. It's getting parents to comply, and take care of their children, hopefully, and we want them to do that. We want them to be in school. We want them to be home when they're supposed to be home. So I think it's another tool in the toolbox for us and for the police officers.
So you think it's a workable plan and you're supportive of it?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Questions of the chief? further questions of Mr. Nigro? Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Ms. Melson?
I do have one more question. Anybody can answer it. About informing the public if this passes in the second reading. How will parents know of this new daytime curfew? I mean, I think probably the school district will probably have a lot of notes going home and such, but, you know, also want to make others, you know, basically aware of it.
I think, obviously, the first, you answered part of the question. Yeah, the school district can help with that. We can put on the website. I think there's a little bit of a learning curve because I guess it'll have to have a second reading after tonight. So, and, you know, giving it some time, getting it out to the police officers so they know, you know, what the new ordinance is. There may be some questions there. I passed it out to my staff. Didn't really get any feedback as far as issues with it. So we're ready to go. It's just a matter of passing it and then, you know, giving some time to get it out.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Markley, I'm presuming since we're joining hands in this effort, there would be a effort also from the school district to help publicize this too.
Absolutely. Excuse me. We have 3 municipalities within our school district boundaries: Independence, Kansas City, and Raytown. Currently, Independence and Kansas City do have a daytime ordinance. Once you pass yours, we will have to sit down with the Board of Education Policy Committee and create a policy that follows all 3 of these ordinances. Once we do that, we will be able to communicate that to parents. We'll do it through our website. We'll do it through School Reach, where we'll reach every household in the district multiple times. So there will be widespread communication. Just quickly, if I could give you some short statistics.
Certainly.
Last year alone, we had 1,400 students that had 90% attendance. That equals 18 days out of school. We had 700 students with 85% attendance. That's 27 days out of school. Roughly 76% of our students are here at a 90% or better clip, okay? When we've got other students that have basically a 76% scoring on their attendance, which is 76 is a C. Okay, so it's certainly an important thing for us. As Alderman Azier said, that is one thing we are graded on with the state, and that's our attendance rate, something we worked very hard at and spent a great deal of money to increase that this year. And we know from what the research suggests, when they're in school, they will learn. So anything we can do, as I said earlier, a team, to get them in school, that will better our children's academic opportunities.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Any questions of any of the gentlemen who presented? Mr. Azier?
I do have a question, and I know that occasionally we do have students that have out-of-school suspension. And the way that I read this is that they would not be allowed to be on the streets during the school day while they're suspended unless their parents are with them.
I believe that is correct. I would have to refer that question to.
The way the ordinance is written is if they're out of school suspension, they're still subject to the ordinance because they're effectively supposed to be in school, and because they're suspended, if I can get them a free pass to go do what they want, they should be following the law like everybody else that's still in school.
Right. And this is kind of corny, but how about a kid that has a 90-day suspension, and we do occasionally have students like that? How would that be handled?
The same way if they had a 180-day suspension, they would be subject to the ordinance.
Okay.
On OSS, or if they're not.
Okay, thank you.
And to answer your question about early outs, we do have early outs on Wednesdays. There'll be some high school students will be out by 12:30, but we'll communicate with the police department, and they will have access to our calendar and our days that not only on Wednesdays, but some days during the year that we do release early for early breaks.
I think it's a great ordinance, so I support it.
We appreciate everything you do for us on this because it will make us that much better of a school district.
Mr. Ertz?
I was looking for in here, should this pass at the next reading, when does it take effect, or how long does that take for whoever knows that?
Ross?
I don't know how long that takes. Mr. Woolworth might be able to answer that one.
It will take effect when the mayor signs it.
Aha.
And I've approved it.
Mr. Mock?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Dr. Markley and the school board for what you guys have done on this for sure, and the school district, so thank you very much.
And we're happy to be a partner with that. Part of me wanted to go ahead and go for a second reading, but I think this kind of came up pretty quick, and I think we need to let it vet in the community a little bit more, so. All right, this is the first reading. If there's no further discussion on this item at this time, it will come up on the next agenda, and we will dispense with discussion on item number 4 and move to item number 5, please, for the first reading.
An ordinance amending Chapter 13, Offenses and Miscellaneous Provisions, Article 4, Offenses Against Persons by adding Section 13-37 regarding endangering the welfare of a minor.
Ross, it's, we see you twice tonight, and it's probably the 2 times we've seen you all year, so we're happy to have you. What do you got next for us, Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance came about mainly because I received a call from one of our police officers who had responded to an apartment where an individual had left a 4-year-old child alone to go down the street to do some activity which wasn't proper, and the state didn't want to take the charges. They were too busy to take them. So we found out we really didn't have an endangerment of a child ordinance. I did some research. I followed state law, basically, and just incorporated state law into ordinances to address those situations. Also would address the situations of adults giving, drugs or alcohol to minors, putting them in that situation. It also addresses some other concerns that we're addressing in the community now, and I think that's why this ordinance, about time something similar to this ordinance is passed.
Very good. Questions, Mr. Nigro? This is the first reading. No questions? All right, we will see it again on the next agenda. Thank you, Mr. Nigro, for your aggressiveness on this.
Thank you, Mayor.
We appreciate it. Okay, unless there's anything else that is not currently on the agenda, we're going to move to announce closed session. Notice is hereby given that the Mayor and Board of Aldermen may conduct a closed session pursuant to the following statutory provisions. Paragraph 610.021, subparagraph 1, legal actions, causes of action or litigation involving a public governmental body, and any confidential or privileged communications between a public governmental body or its representatives and its attorneys. Paragraph 610.021, subparagraph 2, leasing, purchase or sale of real estate by a public governmental body where public knowledge of the transaction might adversely affect the legal consideration therefore. Paragraph 610.021, subparagraph 3, hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting a particular employees by a public governmental body when personal information relating to the performance or merit of an individual employee is discussed or recorded, and or subparagraph 610.021, subparagraph 13, individually identifiable personnel records, performance ratings, or records pertaining to employees or applicants for employment. Do I hear a motion to go to closed session? We're going to nail it down a little bit. I think that's a motion made by, okay, Mr. Pardue wants the motion on that, and it's seconded by Ms. White. And I'll ask the clerk to roll call that, please.
Alderman Pardue?
Yes.
Alderman White? Yes. Alderman Hamilton? Yes. Alderman Melson? Yes. Alderman Lightfoot?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Azier?
Yes.
Alderman Ertz?
Yes.
Alderman Mock?
Yes.
We will reconvene in the administrative conference room in